Well, hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our next project on the lighter side of RC. We do have the little MiG EDF going right now as well, but we are waiting for some parts. So if you are a long-term fan of the channel, you probably know what's in this crate. So let's open this thing up, stay tuned, and we'll talk about this. All right guys, well, in this lovely crate is the A10. Now, I've been lugging this crate around for about a year now. This was Eric's A10. So what we did to this thing last year is we picked it up, we went over the whole thing, we put some new electronics in it and kind of spruced it up and got it all ready. And in the process of moving, I got it all crated up, it stayed here, and we were going to repaint it in the Blacksnakes scheme. I'll throw a picture in now. And it's still here, it's still in the crate, and it's about a year ago that we actually picked it up from the previous owner. So this has since sold, and now it is going to David. So congratulations, David. But we have to make a bunch of changes to this aircraft. So first step on this thing, it's in the crate still. We got to get it out of the crate. I'll tell you what we're doing though. So we are going to be putting some MKS Servos in the aircraft. That's going to happen. We're also switching the engines out. We have two Xicoy 180 engines that are going in this aircraft, which is crazy cool. And we're going to be doing a bunch of rewiring on it and lots of things like that. Probably putting a compressor in it, and we're going to be taking the existing Spectrum system out, and we're going to be putting a Jeti system in here as well too. So tons of cool changes, guys. It's going to be tons of fun. Really looking forward to this project. And we're also repainting it still as well too in the Blacksnakes scheme, which is exciting. So lots of work to do on this aircraft. It's going to be a fun one. So first step is we need to get this thing out of the crate. It was crated very well, very solid. It's insanely heavy, but I am happy to finally get this thing back out of the crate and get it out of my shop eventually too. So anyways, let's pull this thing out of the crate and we'll get going. All right guys, we've got the top off and everything is still in beautiful shape. Now it hasn't been moved far. It basically, it was in our previous home and it got moved here, which is about 20 minutes, but it's been hauled around to different locations throughout our house before it finally made it up in the shop. So anyways, it's in good shape. It still smells beautiful inside there, like nice, fresh, clean wood. So there it is. We still got to do a bunch of dismantling in the crate, but while we are taking things apart, we should probably open up this bag or this package, which has some cool things in it for this A10. All right, so Revic order. We placed this order, it was probably a few weeks ago, I can't remember, but and we've got a massive pair of wing bags with, of course, a phenomenal logo on it. So this is a set of wing bags for David's A10. We've got the normal set, so we've got two wing bags, and we've got the whole tail set up as well too, which is wonderful. All right, well, we've got the crate mostly dismantled. I tell you, I packed this thing to go through a war zone. It was pretty nuts. So very, very well packed. I'm not patting myself on the shoulders. I'm just showing you. So anyways, we pretty much have it all done. I'm just still unscrewing everything and just getting everything taken out. So we are still working on the little MiG as well too. We're just waiting on some parts for that guy. Other thing with this aircraft, if you are interested in some of these parts that are coming out of this aircraft, we're going to be pulling all the servos out. So those are all older, I think 8711 JR servos. Those will be for sale. The two engines in there, I think they're Jet Central Cheetahs, I believe, the 140 Newton engines. Those will be for sale as well too. And so if I don't get anybody initially that's contacting me from this video, they're going to be posted probably on RC groups. So anyways, there'll be a Powerbox Royal as well coming out of this this aircraft, which is brand new. We ordered it, put it in the aircraft. It's got like 4 flights on it. So anyways, continuing to pull this thing out. All right, guys, so first big step with this aircraft is we need to put it all together. We need to put the tail on, the wings on, get it on the CG machine and see what it comes in at. So let's try some YouTube magic here and see what we can do. Whoa, and through YouTube magic, the horizontal stabs installed. Let's try that again for the verticals. And I just realized why my call sign is magic. Clearly, I'm working magic. Tail section's done, wing time. And just like that, the A-10 is once again assembled. So you may be asking yourself, why the heck is he putting it all together if we're just going to be taking it apart to paint it? So the reason we're putting it all together is we want to check the center of gravity. This plane, I don't know the number of flights it has on it, but I put, I think 4 or 5 flights on it before we crated it up, and it flew amazing. Everything was perfect with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the CFG. I'm going to write down all of the locations of the surfaces and travels and all that kind of stuff so we know where to get it back to. You know, what usually happens is people will set these things up as per the manual, but then you fly the thing, you make some changes, and you get it dialed in perfectly. So that's the reason we're going to check the center of gravity. I've already got all the numbers programmed into the Xicoy CFG machine. So what we'll do is we'll take this airplane, put it on the CFG machine, record those numbers, you know, we're, I don't know, half a pound nose heavy or whatever the numbers end up being, and that's where we want to get this aircraft back to. Other problem we have is this was set up on my shop. Actually, it wasn't set up on my shop. It was set up on my friend's iX20 before I got my shop iX20 radio. But I do have the program on my iX20 radio. So we'll need to bind my radio to this aircraft so we can open up the canopy because the canopy is currently locked. So fortunately, because we have a power box in here, remember this power box Royal will be for sale, we'll be able to do all the binding from the power box right here, which is great. So we will be getting rid of this entire panel because obviously we're getting rid of the power box, and this is probably going to be set up more like what the A-10 I just finished building was, where you've got access to this whole area and battery connections and all that kind of stuff. This setup worked well for this plane, but for the new layout, this isn't going to make a lot of sense. I'm going to bind this to my radio. I'm going to air it up, drop the gear, and then we will get it on the ground to check the center of gravity. Okay, so we've got the aircraft on the Xicoy balancer, and I'll show you what we got here. So we are at 61.66 pounds, and there is no fuel in this aircraft right now because it was going to be shipped. So the UATs are still full, but the main tanks are empty. So we'll click on the CG. So this is kind of interesting because the other Skymaster A10 that I built for my friend, it's a lot more nose heavy. I mean, we added weight to that thing. That's a pretty big difference. That's interesting. So now the one thing that's different though is our measurements could be slightly different because these measurements are for that other aircraft. But that other aircraft, we added a lot of nose weight. This one is saying that it is 0.8 pounds tail heavy compared to where the other one was balanced at 0 and we added more weight. So very, very interesting. But what's more important is this gives us our return location. So now when we're all said and done, all we need to do is put this thing back on the scales and get it to this point right where this one is. All right, so we've taken the cockpit out, we've taken the canopy off, all that kind of stuff, and basically exposed the guts of the aircraft. So all of the turbine stuff, including the valves here, those are going to be coming out. Air system, pretty sure we're keeping that as is. And then all of the servos, you can see there's an 8611 servo there for the nose steering. And all the other servos are coming out and getting switched out. So again, those will all be for sale. We've got the Royal sitting up front there with the GPS 2, so all that's coming out, and we've got lots of stuff to pull out of this aircraft. All right, so Luna's helping us in the garage. She's out here cooling off because it's so dang hot outside. So we are pulling the engines first from this aircraft. Now, again, like I said, these engines will be for sale. If you're interested, contact me. These are Jet Central Cheetahs. I believe they are low time, like 3-ish hours maybe. That's just a guess. I will find out the time. But turbine wheels in good shape. Compressor's perfect on this one anyways, and the other one I think is the same. So anyways, what we need to do is we need to weigh this one versus the 180. We don't need to, but it's going to give us an idea of how much weight we're adding or subtracting to the back end. And if you missed it, we did a test run of these 180s on the channel. That was probably maybe the last video, I don't know. I'll put a link down below if you are interested in seeing the test and unboxing video for the 180s. Links down below in the video description, but let's weigh these things and see. So we're not overly worried about all the accessories. So the 180 has all the solenoids and everything underneath the cover. The Jet Central, they're all in the front of the plane, but what I'm more worried about is just how much weight we're going to be adding or subtracting to the back of the plane. So we're zeroed out there. So we are at 1,360 grams for the Jet Central Cheetah. And our Xicoy engine, our 180, we're at 1,532. So what does that mean? That means that we are adding 170 grams more to each of the engines, which based on the center of gravity of this aircraft. Now the center of gravity is right on the wing tube, which is kind of right in the middle of the black access hatch. So what that means is we're going to be adding 340 grams behind the wing tube. So we'll probably need to add a little bit more nose weight in front of the wing tube, or the further forward we get, the less weight we have to add. So those are just things that we need to think about and keep in mind. So if we can, when we start redoing some of this equipment inside here, I want to try and get that pushed forward as much as possible so we minimize the amount of weight that we have to add. Now, thrust we're not concerned with because we're adding a bit more weight, but we're going from, like, I think those Cheetahs are a 140 engine, we're going to a 180 engine, so we're basically adding 80 more newtons between the two engines, but we do have to keep our center of gravity in check. All right, guys, so we've got the wings back off. Obviously, the engines are pulled out. We've got the whole tail section removed and just starting to pull parts off slowly. One of the key things when you're doing something like this is lots and lots of pictures. Now, obviously, we're not putting the equipment back in the aircraft. So we've got the engines out here. We've got the GPS unit out, the satellites, the Spectrum satellites. Again, this stuff, none of this is going back in the aircraft. But just a suggestion, take lots of pictures, document everything, and it's helpful when you're putting everything back together. Now, a lot of the wiring we're going to be keeping in here because I've already changed this previously. Like I put this Ashlock connector on there previously, but we may change some of the other wiring. Obviously, all the turbine wiring and everything that goes to the back, that's all going to get changed. This whole tray here is going to get changed and more simplified because the new owner, David, he runs his systems a little bit different. So anyways, that's what we'll be doing in this area, is kind of simplifying things, which will be good. So that's the process or progress we're at right now. Next thing I'm doing is just starting to pull out some of this Powerbox Royal stuff. Going to start pulling out the turbine stuff. Now when I pull out these wires, I don't know, I can't remember if they're zip tied in there or tied down in there. So what would be ideal is if those wires for the turbines, if I can pull those through the back and run a string, then that means we'll be able to simplify running those wires back forward. All right, so we've taken the fans out and all of the pipes and everything from the back end here. I'll show you that in a second. And I have these little foam inserts. These are from the A10 that I built from a new kit. And I saved these because I knew they would come in handy. Anyways, these go behind. You can see the one's been installed there. So they go behind this area, and that just stops all the paint from going inside, where I have to look at the scheme that we're doing, the Blacksnake scheme, and see. But anyways, that takes care of all that stuff. So, all right, guys, and it is time for another episode of Tip Time, brought to you by Trusty Bent Screwdriver. All right, this tip time revolves around stripping down an aircraft and painting an aircraft. So this is the way, or one of the ways, to organize all your screws you pull off. Now you could just toss them in a big bin and deal with them afterwards, but I like to have them organized. You can use a piece of foam like this. This stuff's nice to use because it's easy to punch in. You can also use a thick piece of cardboard as well too and just pop them in there. But obviously it allows you to label everything. Now we may not use all of this stuff when we put it back in. Like we may not use the turbine screws that were holding down the turbine before, but at least they're there, they're organized, we have options. We've got all of our cockpit screws, canopy screws, and all that stuff's organized. These turbine hatch ones, I just put them in a piece of masking tape just because that's what I had at the time. So, but that's what holds the turbine hatches closed. Okay, so other thing we've done is we've pulled the pipes out, and these, actually I'm kind of glad we pulled these out because the screws on this one were loose and we need to rivet those together. So that's a nice thing to do. And then the pipes here, we just mark them, right? So this is the right pipe. That tells you which way is up. We've marked the left one as well too. And these scale bits don't come with the normal Skymaster kit. These were added on to this kit. So I've just marked those right bottom so we know how those are oriented. And then the screws are still in the holes right there, and I've just put masking tape around them. So that's a nice way to organize those as well too. We're not going to be painting these. We're going to leave them gray. These are kind of the scale exhaust cones, if you will. They're a little bit bigger diameter than the pipe ones that are on there, and they add a little bit better look. Not necessary. The A10 I built just had these, but this is kind of a nicer scale size look. So our back end is basically dismantled and just kind of working through the aircraft in no particular order, but that's where we're at. All right, so I was just taking a look at the pictures. I'll throw the pictures up now. Now, these pictures that I'm throwing up, they are not my pictures. I've pulled them off of a website on the internet. I think might even be the A10 website, but anyways, that's where those pictures are coming from, so credit to those guys. And but the important thing, when you look at the pictures, you'll see that basically what they've done with those pictures, or the Black Snake scheme, is we are just following the existing painting lines, but the light gray on the scheme is a really, really dark gray, and then the dark gray on our aircraft is the black. So we actually, what I was doing is I was sitting down and examining those pictures and just trying to figure out what parts I wanted to separate and things like that. But as I looked at those pictures, everything was very easy and very apparent as far as where our lines are and everything. So worked out, that's actually going to work out really nice. Anyway, so that's the scheme that we're doing in the aircraft. I thought I'd just share that with you guys because it was a bit of an aha moment. All right, and engine pods or nacelles, I believe, are off. Now, one thing that's going to compensate for the a little bit heavier engines is all of this wiring. This is all much more simplified now on the new engines. We've got one cable coming back and one fuel line coming back as well. So much more simple on that stuff. So all of that gets pulled out, which is great. So the reason I pulled the pods off is because it's going to be a lot more simple to paint those things when they are off. And again, we've got just the dark color where you can see the darker gray, so it'll be a lot easier to deal with this, and then also the fuselage when those things are separated. Now, one thing with our nomenclature kit that we're using is, so the nomenclature kit came from Cali Graphics. They do amazing work, guys. If you need anything, definitely check them out. Now, the marker lights, I don't know what they're called. Again, somebody will correct me, I'm sure, in the comments section. The marker lights are not sized properly. So these are just, they're too small for these scale pieces. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna mask these guys off because they're all over the aircraft, and we'll mask them off and we'll just keep them as the existing paint is, and then we'll just paint around it, peel the masking off. So we're not going to be using those pieces from the nomenclature kit, but we do have everything else for this scheme. All right, guys, we're absolutely tearing out this equipment out of this airplane. So we've got the power box Royal out, we've got both engines out, the wiring harnesses. I just thought I'd show you the new turbines. I mean, these aren't really that old, but the newer generation of turbines are just so much more simple. So you look at the wiring bundle here required for one of these engines, and you're talking about 165 grams. And I bet you the new wiring bundle for the new engine would be about 50 grams for the one wire going front to back. So it's just unbelievable the difference. So pretty cool stuff. Just thought I'd show you that. I mean, all this stuff still works. It's in great shape, but the new stuff is just so simple. All right, guys, finally got all the guts out of the aircraft. All of the extra turbine lines and wiring and all that stuff is out. So basically we are stripped in the front here. Also took the front gear out, took the whole tray out here that had everything mounted. So we're pretty much disassembled as much as we need to. On the interior at this point, we are changing out this EVSD5U Evo unit as well too. That's a decision that David made, so we're going to go with the Xicoy sequencer and all that kind of stuff. So that's something that we'll be changing, but we'll keep that in place for now. Got rid of all of our stuff on our startup tray here because we'll be redoing that. And the back end is basically empty, and that's good. So last things to take off the fuselage are the belly pylons. Now we could leave those on. They make it a little bit difficult to paint. Not terrible, but I'm going to take those off because we're going to do the same thing on the wings as well too, and that just gives us a better opportunity to prep them and paint them. So we're almost ready here. You can see there the front gear's been taken out. So that's all good. We've got our wire bundle there, which we'll just keep in place for now, and that's basically it. So gives you a shot of the underside there. So fuselage is almost ready to start prepping. We are going to do some repairs to the fuselage here, and what I mean by that is just going over everything and checking everything out. All right, guys, so with the fuselage now essentially complete as far as dismantling goes, we are ready to move on to the wings. So the wings are going to be fairly substantial as far as what we take off as well. So we're taking off all the pylons. Those are going to be removed from the wing, and we're going to take off the two flap surfaces. But what we're going to do is we're just going to disconnect the servo linkage here at the flap, and then these just slide out, no problem. Then we're going to leave those servo linkages in place until we're done the painting and ready to move on to the servo installation. Then we'll pull those servos out and deal with them afterwards. The aileron and air brake, those cannot be separated because it's live hinge, so it's got a skin hinge on it. What we'll do there is we are going to just tape these guys closed with double-sided tape, most likely. And that'll keep the red all nice and red. And then we'll have to move this to paint those areas right there, and we'll be disconnecting that that servo linkage as well too. Probably taking this one right off just so we can move this surface as much as possible. So anyways, that is what we're doing with the surfaces and pylons. As far as the gear goes, we're going to pull the gear pod off. That's fairly straightforward. Separate the linkage here that attaches it to the gear. And then we're going to pull the gear off the wing as well too. And there's Festo connections on all of the lines, so that makes that nice and simple. And then we'll just leave the air line for the lock and the cylinder and all that stuff in place. We're not going to touch that. We'll just prep that off and paint around it. So anyways, that's what we're going to be doing on these wings. So next view you see, the wings are going to be completely dismantled. All right, guys, and we have both of our wings completely free of all their stuff that's stuck on them, and they are ready to go. Now, it's the next day, and last night I went through and did a couple just small repairs. We had a bit of a hole here on the leading edge, or a little mark, so I just dealt with that and filled everything I could find with high sol. So we do have a bit of sanding to do, but basically at this point, everything's dismantled and it is ready to start prepping for paint. So good time in the video to give a shout out to everybody that has donated to the Shop Build Fund. If you're not familiar with what that is, we're collecting donations here at the Lighter Side of RC. There's a link down below, information down below, and there's been a completely crazy outpouring of support from everybody. Thank you so much for the support. It means a ton to me. It's so cool to see all the support. And obviously, as your names scroll up the screen here, huge thanks to each and every one of you that have donated, whether it's big or small. Thank you for those donations. All right, guys, so that is, I think, it for this video. We've got everything dismantled that we need to have dismantled. Next video, we are going to start to work into the preparation portion. Now, with a scale airplane like this, you don't want to be sanding everything down because then you lose all of the scaleness of the aircraft. So if it was a sports plane, like let's say the Ultra Flash up there, you know, you'd want to, you don't have to, but you'd want to sand down generally as much of the material as possible. And obviously there's lots of different ways to accomplish the repaint goal. So as we work into the repainting, just keep in mind your way might be different than mine, and that's totally okay. It's okay if we don't agree on things like that. So anyways, so what we're going to do on the next video is we are going to work into preparation on everything for paint. And just to give you guys a bit of a kind of a pre-description here, kind of the first thing we're going to be doing is going through and scuffing up everything that we can without damaging the scale details on the aircraft. Then we'll be going through and we'll be prepping everything off that needs to stay painted. So like I've talked about already, the little scale details, the lights and things like that, we'll be prepping all that stuff off and getting everything prepped for painting. Now, I don't think I'm going to do a full-on like a tutorial. It's really not that overly hard. Basically what we're doing is we're going to be painting the light gray first, and you don't necessarily need to worry about your lines. We're just going to paint the lighter gray in the lighter gray section, and then what you do after that is you go with your 3M adhesive foam. I'll show you that in the next video, and that's where you're prepping off your dark black lines. So anyways, that is what the next video is going to be. So we're going to be focusing on painting all of the little bits and getting this the scheme changed on this aircraft. So it's going to be pretty cool, pretty fun. We may have a little MIG video thrown in there in between as we get parts for the MIG and the MIG progresses. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching the videos. Thank you for the outpouring of support on the channel. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, and I appreciate it very, very much. If you guys have any questions, listen down below. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, and that's it. Hit the thumbs up. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching, and ciao.